All right, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Are you ready?
We are ready.
Because my colleague, Monica Rodriguez, and I are excited about being here today. Excititoed, as she, to coin her phrase. Glad that you're here for the Tuesday, January 28th meeting of the Economic Development Committee. We have a full and exciting agenda for your consideration, and we are glad that you are here. Let me begin by noting that we have no multiple agenda comment items nor any general public comment items, so we will open and close those matters unless there's some objection. Seeing none, that will be the order. And Madam Member, and we're being joined by our Mr. Member, the Honorable Joe Busciano. If there's no objection, members, we're going to take items 2, 3, 5, and 7 through 19 on consent. Let me repeat that.
Yes, sir.
2, 3, 5, and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 on consent, unless there's an objection.
Move the items.
Okay, that will be the order. Where does that take us, Mr. Clerk?
That takes us to item number 1, which is communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of Ms. Carolyn Hull as the permanent general manager of the Economic and Workforce Development Department.
All right, well, let's invite Ms. Carolyn Hull to the table. And we are pleased to see you here. We know you're no stranger to City Hall or the issues that we're grappling with here in economic development. So we are pleased with your presence. We had a chance to chat last week. And why don't you just share with us a little bit about your background and your interest in taking on these awesome responsibilities?
Well, thank you, and thank you all for having me. It's a privilege to be here, and it's an honor to be nominated for the position of General Manager for the Economic and Workforce Development Department for the City of Los Angeles. I guess in summary as to why this job is of interest to me is because I love LA. I've been in LA for the better part of 20 years. And in that time, I've served as a senior economist for F.W. Dodge Standard & Poor's, where I was the West Coast senior economist. I was a land use consultant for CBRE, where we worked on projects throughout Los Angeles, the city of Los Angeles and the county of Los Angeles. I served in numerous roles at the redevelopment agency for the city of Los Angeles, one being the regional administrator for South LA, where I worked on numerous projects. Some of them I think are still around.
Yes.
And
unfortunately, yes.
in my role at the redevelopment agency, I had the privilege of developing and being the first president for the Los Angeles Development Fund, the New Market Tax Credit Fund, which exists still today. And in my most recent role, I was the vice president for strategic initiatives and industry cluster development for the Los Angeles County Economic Development Corporation. And throughout all of those positions, there's one thread that runs through it. It is my desire to develop and implement economic policies and programs that are inclusive and to facilitate the retention and the creation of living wage jobs. And I want to bring that to this new position, working with all of you, each council office, the various city departments, the mayor's office, and other stakeholders, so that we can expand Los Angeles economy in a way that's inclusive and has equity for all.
Well, you've got a tremendous background of training and experience and commitment, and we certainly appreciate it. Talk a little bit about what you see as some priorities for the underserved areas of our community, like South LA, which you referenced, but also the Valley and other portions that are underserved. What's the unique role that EWDD has in changing that landscape?
That's a great question. And actually, the economy is changing. I think some of the unique challenges is the changing economy, the jobs of the future. So many of the jobs that we see today or that have been middle class in the past will not be here 20 years from now. Automation will be a process that we're going to have to grapple with. How do we prepare our communities for those middle class living wage jobs of the future? That cuts across all of these underserved communities. In fact, it cuts across our city. So it'll be one of the primary concerns is how do we prepare our workforce so we can continue to have a competitive advantage in the city of Los Angeles. In other areas, there are a tremendous amount of underutilized assets, land assets, that we can collectively put together so that we can develop them so they have community benefits associated with them, and that they are actually propelling us to be competitive for those industry clusters, whether it's aerospace, bioscience, advanced manufacturing. Let's use those underutilized parcels so that we can actually be competitive in those industry clusters and jobs for the future.
Homelessness, as you know, is another big issue, an overriding issue that's impacting us citywide. What resources do you think you have, or does the department have, to assist families to prevent them from falling into homelessness, providing those resources in a way that helps them become economically viable?
Well, it's economic opportunity. I think one of the things that's critical for this department is that we not just look at real estate projects, we look at economic opportunity. And one of the things that we can do is work collaboratively with the different departments, such as Eifds. I don't think actually one department or one person or one entity can handle the homeless crisis. I think the challenge for all of us is to get out of our silos, to work collaboratively, to determine what are those assets that we have, for example, that we can utilize for either homeless shelters, permanent supportive housing, and other affordable housing units, and then collectively look at this problem and say, how do we give those support services to those who are on the brink of going into homelessness? I mean, the real critical issue is not letting people fall into homelessness to begin with.
Exactly. Mr. Busciano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm excited about this appointment from Mr. Garcetti, our mayor, of Ms. Carolyn Hall. You and I have I actually turned to you on one of my first few weeks coming into this building for some guidance and direction on waterfront development, economic development in Watts, improving and increasing our housing stock at our public housing sites. And we're actually seeing those projects come to life today.
I'm very excited about that.
So I'm really excited about this recommendation. And as you know, I've been a big proponent of a local economic development, and just to pick off of Mr. Chairman, your comment on diversifying the workforce. Every part of the city has its different needs in economic development and technical support, and that's a challenge. How do you plan on approaching that challenge?
You're absolutely right, because there's no one-shoe-fits-all approach. And I think I address that in similar fashion to where I've addressed it in my past positions, which is, first of all, meeting with every council member and sitting down and taking a tour and determining what are the critical issues in that particular community. Because the issues that are in CD15 are not the same issues that'll be in CD3, CD2. They may be, but let's get there. Let's determine what those issues are collectively and determine a strategic plan forward and look at key metrics to see whether we're making progress or not. Because one thing we don't want to do is simply have a conversation. We want to have measurable milestones. And if we need to, let's course correct on what those issues are. And like in your district, looked at some of the challenges of developing on the waterfront are very specific. And so one of them had to be, you have to go to the state. Each issue has a response that is specific to that issue and to that district. And I will be responsive to each of the council members' issues and obviously to the mayor and the other city departments.
And as far as using the tools in the toolbox as it relates to economic development, I've been a vocal supporter of adding financial tools, the federal opportunity zone designations, EIFDs, CREAs, business tax incentives for investment in targeted areas. All these strategies are in play, but moving very slowly. It's been very frustrating. What's your opinion about these tools, and what might be necessary to advance them quickly?
I think in many of the tools that you just mentioned, state relief will be needed. For example, in the opportunity zones, there's two issues there. One is if left to their own devices, opportunity zones may exacerbate displacement as opposed to preventing displacement. And at the state level, there's nonconformity. So you have investors, capital is fluid. So investors who are looking at opportunity zones are going to look to New York and other states that actually have conforming tax structures so that they can get the full tax benefits. And that's one of the conversations actually we've already been having at the state level as to how, if certain projects that meet the community needs are addressed, could there be conformity at that level so that the capital can flow into these communities? Another issue is working with nonprofits and other organizations to make sure that these programs do not exacerbate displacement. And that's one thing we've been looking at in terms of strategically looking at the assets throughout the county that are publicly owned, because we can actually facilitate the development of our publicly owned assets in these zones and actually have community benefits that meets our needs. And so we kind of take control of the development process as opposed to looking to the market to take control of that development process.
And as you know, we're trying to diversify the workforce down at the port. You raise a good issue of automation, which is a deep concern for the longshore men and women. And in a time where we're bringing in Alta Sea and the Marine Research Campus, we've also, I think other parts of the city are trying to move forward on innovation districts, and we can't do that without the broadband infrastructure or the enhanced infrastructure finance districts. What are your thoughts on EIFDs?
I think EIFDs have been a good solution to some of the problems left by the void of the redevelopment agencies. I think we have to look again at collaboration because we need our county partners to really be partners with us in terms of the EIFDs and other jurisdictions so that, again, the full benefit in the EIFD could be established. Otherwise, there's no reason why the city couldn't in and of itself use its tax increment. The power becomes leveraging all those assets to actually move forward. Another thing with innovation districts, as you may remember, in your district, we worked with Alta Sea to get federal funding.
Yep.
So we used
the EDA grant.
a $3 million EDA grant. And I think those EDA grants are actually undersubscribed. So I think actually working with some of our federal funds to move into innovation districts would be a way that we can approach, like we did in your district, approach kind of leveraging our city funds.
Appreciate that. And lastly, if I can, Mr. Chair, as you know, the department recently completed a multi-year planning process for our community economic development strategy.
Our SIDS.
Our SIDS. How will you use it to guide the department's annual work activities?
Yeah, I reviewed it, and I think and there's some really great flows and objectives in the SEDS. I think again, kind of looking at what are our critical objectives, and then again having the metrics. What do we want to accomplish in year one? Actually, in the first 6 months, what can we accomplish in the first 6 months? Year one, year two, and then really kind of instead of sometimes when you have like a 150-page document, it's a little overwhelming. Let's each of us get to like the top 10 that we want to achieve, like collectively agree that these are the major issues that we want to address, the major objectives, and let's have some milestones associated with that. And if we're not hitting those milestones, let's talk about why, and let's course correct. I think all in all, I think it's really important to just have dialogue because things are going to happen. We're going to hit roadblocks, but the important aspect is to determine what are our priorities, how do we get there, what are the resources that we need, and how do we work collectively to bring it to fruition.
Clearly, you are ready for this position. I'm really excited. When I saw that letter come through the mayor's office with the recommendation, we were high-fiving each other on the 5th floor of my office.
Thank you.
Not the fact that you know my district well, but you have the skill set, the knowledge, the experience to build coalitions with the overall goal of improving the quality of life of this city. I'm excited. And you have my full-fledged support and recommendation to move this forward.
Thank you so much.
Thank
I'm
you.
excited
Thanks,
to work
Carolyn.
with all of you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rodriguez.
Thank you. Well, likewise to my colleagues. It's just been phenomenal hearing your about your experience and how broad it is. And I think what's most important, when we talk about our economic development strategy here in the city of Los Angeles, I think that was a tool that was absent for many, many years, not allowing us to make effective leverage of other resources. And so I'm very much looking forward to your appointment and you getting straight away to work because there's quite a bit that's still being left on the table when we talk about leverage of youth dollars as well and some of the employment opportunities and training programs that we could be facilitating and creating out of workforce development departments. So I look forward to our collaboration. I know the San Fernando Valley would equally be eager to see your presence and participation in helping us guide some of those similar opportunities that you've been instrumental in helping to shepherd in through your role in the CRA. Obviously, having a basic and fundamental understanding of the economics of the different agencies and entities in our city and how we can be more of a regional center in certain parts of the city that have not had that same economic opportunity, I think is what I'm looking most forward to you helping to achieve in parts of the city that have been left behind. So very excited about your appointment and look forward to our collaborations.
Thank you so much.
One last question.
Mr. Chair, if I can. Something I failed to mention, I failed to ask, the city controller who I'm in lock and step with when he had the report on the LA Municipal Economic Development Corporation for the city of Los Angeles, creating that nonprofit very similar to what we see the successes in New York.
Right.
Give me your thoughts on that. I know we have not had a chance to talk offline on that specific issue of developing a Municipal Economic Development Corporation for the city of LA.
I haven't. Let me speak to the New York City experience because I actually toured that with a group of stakeholders a few years ago, and they came out here to discuss this issue of how can the LA kind of replicate that. And one of the pieces of advice that was given to us during that tour was that NYCDC have a solid contract, a multi-year contract, where they have all the assets were put into kind of like this fund or a pool, and they have metrics that they have to hit. And if they hit those metrics, they get their money. If they don't hit the metrics, they don't. But they have the power, and they have been empowered to set the rents, to sell assets within the purview of being, some oversight. And I'm not I haven't read the actual document for LA, but for LA to replicate that success, we would have to get various departments to come together to decide we're going to collaborate and kind of formulate a structure that would allow us to replicate that in some fashion. I think.
Why do you think that hasn't happened yet?
Well, as they said to me, this is the New York folks, this isn't me speaking, they said, you have a very interesting government structure here in Los Angeles. They use different language, but I won't replicate their...
No one wants to let go of power.
So they said we would never been able to do it in New York with this structure.
The structure itself, gotcha. Right. Okay, good to know. I'm not giving up on it.
Any others? Don't give up yet. We got someone that can help us carry the ball forward. So we just appreciate it.
I move approval.
I think it's unanimous members that we support the nomination and look forward to moving it, supporting it in the council. Do we know when it's coming to the council?
Yes, there will be tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Great. That's
thank you.
Quick, fast, and a hurry.
Yep.
We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow, and we are excited about your nomination, and we will be supporting it wholeheartedly.
And I'll be touring all of your districts shortly.
Yay.
So pick out some good restaurants.
All right. Thank you. Next item.
Next item is item number 4. This is Economic and Workforce Development Department and Workforce Development Board Joint Report. And the city administrator has also submitted a report relative to the transition of Youth Policy Institute programs.
Okay, quite sad to see the demise of this organization. But when lucky don't stop the show, as they say, right? So we look forward to hearing how
I don't know how you come up with this stuff.
Can you hashtag? You got to hashtag that one, Karen.
We look,
I don't know, Karen. I
we
don't
look,
know.
we look forward to learning how.
Is your staff collecting
how
this
the-
for a book?
How the department is going to help us refashion and reorganize the effort and activities. So the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Shafia Mir from the CEO's office, and we've submitted our report yesterday. And with us, I have EWDD as well. So I'll just run through my brief remarks on our report for EWDD's request to confirm the selection of 4 replacement operators to continue services at 4 city workforce development assistance centers, formerly operated by YPI, Youth Policy Institute. We recommend that Council confirm the 4 retroactive contract amendments which EWDD has already executed with the replacement providers. Those retroactive terms began on November 1st, 2019, and run through June 2020. And along with the scopes of work, amounts, and other information are included in the attachment to the CAO report. We also recommend that the Department of General Services, GSD, be instructed to report back relative to EWD's request to execute lease agreements between the city and service providers at 2 of the sites, which are city-owned. This report back is to accommodate a possible community benefits analysis, which GSD advised us has not been done to date for those 2 sites, which may or may not be needed, but they just wanted to report back to just tie that up. Finally, the CO report also recommends that EWDD report back regarding any additional contract amendments which EWDD plans to execute with the replacement operators. And just as an update, from the time that our report, the CO report, was finalized, there were 4 additional contract amendments that were executed, which gave additional funds to the 4 replacement operators. I think EWDD can provide information on those 4, but we will also take care of having council approve and confirm them in a later report that's coming, which is the carry-in report for the current year workforce development annual plan. But the 4 replacement operators are our current providers already within the city workforce development system. So they were selected and the information was contained in the report. So those are my main remarks. If you have questions or EWDD can add, if they have anything to add.
So first of all, I would thank Councilwoman Rodriguez for putting in the motion that gave us the authority so that we didn't lose time for services. So we're really glad to report that our other operators, I won't call them other monkeys, but other partners in our system did step up quite.
For the record, I didn't call them monkeys either. If anybody's listening.
That they did step up readily to continue to provide the services. So in a couple of the sites, we didn't lose a day. A couple of the sites, we did close down for a couple of weeks and then reopen the sites after a short procurement. Thank you for that. One of the major issues that we were also looking forward to was the employees themselves. There was over 900 plus employees that were full and part-time that were connected to the large organization. So we were able to confirm that over 450 of them were picked up by another organization not funded by the city of Los Angeles. Was their child care and after school care site. So they were.
They all went to one?
Yeah, one organization picked up in one foul swoop.
Wow.
Which was really good. We did invoke our contract, which means that retention service ordinance, and the agencies actually went above what was required in the ordinance. So they actually interviewed nearly 50 individuals that were connected to a grant one way or another. There was about 23 that were actually under the ordinance, if you read it in hard definition, but they did actually interview all 50 plus. We had over 35 job offers and over 30 folks that were hired, and those are just on our EWDD contracts. There were additional ones with the mayor's office and Eifds, which will have other reports that they'll submit to committee directly. We actually held 2 rapid response efforts and had well over 130 individuals that we worked with to get them unemployment insurance and all the benefits and programs that they're entitled to. So they did attend in person and we're connected with our various partners in our WorkSource system. We did have an emergency emergency meeting or emergency response right before Christmas. There were certain individuals that didn't have money for light bills and for rent and housing. Eifds, to their credit, Abby stepped forward and helped us identify some private funds. Goodwill helped identify some private funds that we were able to do that. It was a one-time effort, but we were able to actually meet the emergency need right before the holidays. We are consistently, for those that are still looking for employment, we are still making the referrals and connecting. We have a huge job fair coming February 13th that we'll also invite any remaining employees that have not been connected to employment yet. We have been working with the Department of Industrial Relations. They will be filing a case on behalf of all employees for the back pay, which I know was a major issue of Councilwoman Martinez. So they will be leading that in conjunction with BCA. So we had all hands on deck. It's taken a very unfortunate situation, but it really does show that when the city can respond to emergencies and can provide the services that we owe our communities.
So have replacement operators then been identified for all the contracts?
Yeah, and that was done within days. And we have one here today, AYE Moises Carrillo, who heads that up, and they stepped right up, took people in, started interviewing, started doing the services within a couple weeks.
Okay. Councilwoman Rodriguez?
Thank you. In terms of the management of the contract that YPI had for the Promise Zone, has there been a new oversight or, agency that is now leading that grant?
So the mayor's office has been diligently working on identifying that lead entity. I don't believe it's been publicly announced as of yet, but I know they do have a very short list of agencies to be able to take that forward. Mr. Steve Zimmer is heading that up.
Okay, thank you.
Former board member?
Yeah.
Yeah, former board member.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then in terms of those that are still haven't become reemployed, are they being case managed, and what is the percentage, what is the number of individuals that are still unemployed as a result of YPI's collapse?
We're estimating between 100 and 150 that are still, and many of these were part-time employees, so some of them stayed in school. We are releasing a survey by the end of this week to the whole population, so we have a better sense of that number. All of them that were eligible for unemployment insurance are definitely, a vast majority of them have been able to obtain unemployment insurance. And then the job matching, that's done through our worksource centers and youth source centers.
Okay. So Carolyn, this is the too big to fail concept. They got too big and they failed. I'm still angry about it. I'm still very angry about it. As a result, I'm always very hypersensitive to what have we learned from this experience, and what provisions are we now putting in place to prevent this from happening again? And so what lessons learned are we looking at when we talk about these contracts? Some of the agencies that are substantially, they have the lion's share of resources, really evaluating and questioning the metrics of what they say they're providing and what they, actually are providing. What is our method of verifying the work that they're doing, and assuring that with all the resources that they were given, that they're actually delivering on the promises they make.
Right, and so there's really two analyses that are currently being conducted, and we're actually looking at a third analysis. So we always do an analysis of their financial stability, and that really is looking at past practices. If they have been debarred by any other public agency, which we automatically debar us or them from obtaining public dollars. Have they had any other contract failures, and we do that analysis currently. Then we do a program analysis and the program monitoring. That's Gerardo's main focus, and we do monitoring. The feds require us only to do it once a year. We do it 4 times a year. That we're actually doing.
I'm sorry, you say the state requires once a year, and we do it 4?
We do it 4 times a year, and we stretch our staff very thin to be able to do that, but we do want our staff on the ground talking to customers and looking at those case management. So that's the performance side of it. And we were able to report that on a biannual basis about who's doing what and are they actually meeting contract performances. But the third part, and this is really a little bit of a new aspect to us, is really doing a stress analysis that on the agencies themselves, and I think that's really where we're looking.
Before, during, or after?
All three.
Yeah.
All three. It's also during the contracting process or when we're doing the RFP process is being able to do that analysis. So Dun & Bradstreet, for example, has a tool that is a predictive analysis of agencies, and they rate the agencies on a numeric scale. We looked at that for this particular agency, and it showed that they were under stress. We had never looked at that before as a tool. So the predictive analysis also, it does have some downsides to, especially for the smaller community-based organizations that we really try to promote rather than the more corporate organizations. So I know it's a delicate balance, but that third analysis of being able to do that predictive analysis around their credit and can they actually handle the grant. Oftentimes for many organizations, when you put too much grant dollars on them, they just don't have the infrastructure and the capacity and I think what really happened in this case, they weren't sized appropriately for what they needed to deliver on.
Well, I want to thank you for the rapid triage of something that, when we talk about the population that they were serving, it's such a critical group of youth that they were providing services to. Right. And their failure, it was disgusting, and it was infuriating for me. What I think it daylighted for me is the importance when I look at agencies that provide service to youth in my district, for example, very limited, and it shows and it reflects. And just to be candid, I'm just going to say it here. We're not in homelessness and poverty. I have the same concerns as it relates to our homeless service providers, because there's monopolies that are growing as a result of the scale, and you entrust the same agencies to continue to grow, and it gives me great concern. So I think the need to incubate new service providers and help grow the diversity is incredibly important. I think the failure to do so is part of why we are living through this experience right now. There's no, it's not a one size fit all. And there was an agency that engendered the trust and lived off of it, and failed to provide for our kids in the end. So I think it's just really important that, it's a lesson learned on so many different levels, not just as it relates to this program, but as I mentioned, I have the same concerns with any entity. Monopolies don't work, because if they fail, it devastates us all. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to make sure that those lessons have been learned, that we identify ways that we could potentially incubate and support other smaller agencies. I know I'm doing that with a number of small homeless service providers, for example, in my district, because we need that diversity of support and expand that capacity, because we're very limited right now. And I think when it comes to youth, there's no single model that works. I think everyone's different, and they benefit from them all. So I look forward to working with you all to help expand and incubate and support new youth programs that are going to make sure that they help to fill the gaps that some of these agencies that have the lion's share of resources are failing to provide.
Mm-hmm. Just one other recommendation that I didn't think of earlier after hearing you is that we don't, as a city, have a citywide database that collects information on a particular agency. So if you take this one in particular, they had contracts with us, they had contracts with HSID, they had contracts with the mayor's
county,
office,
and
they had various findings in various parts of the organization, but there's not one database that goes across, and that might be one recommendation that collectively we could come back
that's
to
a good
you
one,
for,
yeah.
of having a database that we could collect the audit findings and program findings across departments. So if they might be doing really well with us, but they're having a terrible time over here, that should send some red flags. But right now, there's no way. And even in our department ourselves, we'll have different funding sources that will have different, the information is collected in different places. So having one centralized database to collect that on these organizations will help us all have better intelligence.
Well, that's a really good point. I see Carolyn writing down feverishly. So thank you for that. That's a refreshing view from here. I know we attempted to do that very thing when we were overhauling LA Bovin. Our method of paying out on contracts, it does need to be centralized, and that, there's a conversation. In fact, the meeting after this is with our procurement officer to have that very conversation. But I think you're right. I think the reality is that there are agencies that are out securing at a variety of different departments, and again, other municipalities, right? When you look at YPI, the overlap with LA Unified and the programs that they had there, the county programs. So there was a lot of over leverage. I think that's the concern, because you pull out one, then it all falls. So that's reminds me of the last housing bubble, but it's the same concept. It's just there's an over leverage and no skin in the game, and so the kids lost for that. But I think that's to be noted for us to work on. I think it's a centralized system is well warranted, and one that we will definitely be pursuing, and we will make sure to make that happen. Thank you.
Mr. Joe.
Good.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm excited to know that we've got at least a path forward. It was devastating, as the councilwoman indicated, to individuals and organizations. It just really was a blow. But without objection, we will receive the CAO's report and look forward to further updates.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, Mr. Clerk.
And just to clarify, we did have that report that was submitted today from the CAO. It has the 5 recommendations, and it's dated January 27th, 2020, and we'll be adopting all of those.
Okay, we'll be receive and adopt.
Thank you very much. And the last item on our agenda is item number 6, which is a communication from the mayor and resolution relative to a grant award funding to continue Project Impact Cohort 1 that provides formerly incarcerated individuals with employment services, peer support, legal services, and behavioral health services.
All right. Welcome. This is an exciting program, and how's it coming?
Zeta Davis, Executive Officer for Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity, led by Deputy Mayor Brenda Shockley. Wanted to give you just a brief overview of Proposition 47 and then why we're here today. Proposition 47 is a 2014 voter-approved initiative that reduced some specified low-level drug and poverty crimes from felonies to misdemeanors. Each year, the state savings generated by the implementation of Proposition 47 are deposited into the Safe Neighborhoods and School Funds. 65% of these savings are set aside annually for the Board of State and Community Corrections, we refer to them as the BSCC, to administer a competitive grant program. Proposition 47 requires that these funds be awarded to public agencies to provide mental health services, substance abuse disorder treatment, and or diversion programs for those in the criminal justice system. There's additional legislation that requires the grants be awarded competitively, that funds may serve both adults and juveniles, and allow funds to be used for housing-related assistance and other community-based supported services, including job skills, training, case management, and civil legal services. So the BSCC further requires that at least 50% of the award made to grantees is passed through to community-based service providers. And so the first notice of funding availability of funding took place in 2017. Both the City Attorney's Office as well as the Mayor's Office were awarded 3 years of grant funding. For the Mayor's Office, we received...
Wait, just those two?
In the City of Los
In the
Angeles.
city of LA?
Yes. Right.
Okay.
No. Go ahead and
All right.
Go ahead and
Yes.
Finish.
The mayor's office received a $6 million grant through the mayor's office of reentry, which we are representing today. We created a comprehensive employment-focused program called Project Impact. After a 6-month startup period to complete the city's procurement process, Project Impact began program implementation in February 2018. There was a second notice of Proposition 47 funding available in 2018, and the mayor's office applied and was awarded another $6 million to continue the existing Project Impact program with existing service providers that are currently serving program participants. And that is what brings us here today, is a recommendation that we accept the award, that we execute an agreement with the BSCC, and that we also adopt a resolution that endorses this agreement. Additional time was needed to complete the CAO report, and so we've asked if we could come back to committee and then provide you with a more comprehensive report about the program since its implementation, as well as what will be continued in Project Impact going forward for the second cohort, as well as some what we will consider some exciting changes or enhancements that we'll be adding to the program as well.
And when do you propose to come back with that?
Camilla Fong, Office of the CAO. We're going to come back at the next EDC meeting. I believe that's February 12th.
Okay. Could you include in that some kind of a breakdown of how many individuals have been assisted in each council district? I think that would be useful.
Absolutely.
And what else, members? What other information would you like to
Well,
see?
if I can.
Or you have a comment?
Mr. Chair, I believe I sense your frustration with, and I want to, let me share the frustration through you. I'm channeling the chairman. So with Prop 47, there's significant cost savings based on what was approved by the voters of the state. And I'll be, for the record, I supported Prop 47 because I kept arresting the same guys in and out of jail, right? But the same token, we're not seeing those dollars being filtered through municipalities, specifically us, or we're not getting our share of these dollars, because even more so today, if you look at our streets, we're seeing a significant increase in drug addiction, where folks are dying on our streets. And it's been very frustrating, and I understand that we have to apply for these grants, right? So how much, since Prop 47 is passed, how much has the city of LA, I don't know if you have this number, Ms. Davis, has the city of LA have recuperated from these cost savings from the state? Do you have a dollar figure?
To my knowledge.
Just so that when I'm out in the streets and at neighborhood councils and talking to the community, so I have a figure.
Through the first round of funding, both the city attorney's office as well as the mayor's office each received $6 million, so a total of 12. And for the second cohort, which is in effect now, this is the one we're talking about here today. Again, the city attorney received another $6 million, as well as the mayor's office, so another 12. So that would be a total of $24 million.
Okay, got it. So going back to Ms. Rodriguez's point, is like, I mean, how are we holding these folks accountable for service delivery too, right? And we're fortunate to be one of the 4 hubs in Watts, and I want to know how we're doing in Watts compared to other parts as far as performance metrics of the Watts location and how that compares to the other 3 in the city.
Yes, and that's a...
Because accountability is also important as well,
Absolutely.
equally important.
Could you describe these 4?
Yes, so the 4 areas are Watts, as we've talked about, South Los Angeles, downtown Los Angeles, as well as the San Fernando Valley. I wanted to share that as part of Project Impact, we have a required partner, which is a data evaluation partner. RAND is our partner on this project, both for Cohort 1 as well as going forward in Cohort 2. They have been responsible for collecting the data that each of our regions are collecting with our program participants. They have prepared a very early, kind of a preliminary evaluation based on a very short period of time, only about a year's worth of data that we can share with the committee so that you have an understanding in terms of our startup and where we would have been about 6 months ago. We anticipate there'll be another report that they'll be providing, and so our office will make sure that we keep the committee up to date in terms of our progress. But we do have one that's already been prepared that we can share when we come back to committee.
And each of these 4 hubs, what are we doing as an agency, as a city, to market these types of programs? I know the hubs are in a brick and mortar. In Watts, I hear from residents that we still have gang lines in territories in Watts, and our hub is on the west side of Watts, which is in a gang territory, WLCAC, which prevents others in fear of crossing. Unfortunately, crossing that line to get the services. We were just at a Watts Gang Task Force meeting the other day, and a lot of folks are not aware of the programs and the services are being provided, the job programs for the reentry job program. So is it a way even to go out and have field days to promote these types of reentry programs?
Maybe a mobile unit or something like that.
Right, right.
That is a great suggestion. We also got that feedback from your staff as well, particularly as it relates to Watts and kind of invisible lines that people, the communities have to live with. And so we think that there is clearly the opportunity for the mayor's office to work with all the project impact partners to better market the program. Just so we're clear, the program participants must be on probation or parole. They also have to have been incarcerated within the past year to be eligible to receive these services. They are not required to be referred by their parole or probation officer. They can self-select to participate in the program on their own.
I'm willing to even give up my
all the more
office. I
reason.
mean, come to the Watts City Hall. I mean, there's.
And so when we come back, we can perhaps have some ideas on some alternative methods of ensuring that everyone has access to the program and is aware of it as well.
Thank you. Mr. Price, if you're okay, I'd like to add a recommendation to this item, to get biannual report backs on the progress of Project Impact, if you're okay with that.
Okay, yeah,
updated
we'll include that.
metrics.
Okay. The first cohort was intended to help 420, but only 315 apparently are being served. Is that accurate? Or
I'm sorry, Councilmember, can you say that again for me?
the plan was to assist 420.
Correct.
And my understanding is that only 315 have been assisted to date.
Yes, if I could clarify.
If you can clarify that and also talk about what the goals are for the next cohort.
Yes.
And what you're going to do to make sure that it gets filled.
Agreed. And so the, just clarification in terms of terminology, the 420 is the number that the project has agreed to serve. In addition to that, the commitment was to enroll 196 participants, and we have met that level. And so the other piece is to employ at least 108 of our fellows. So serve 400, meaning we touch them. Enroll, meaning that they participate in the year-long program, receiving legal services, behavioral therapy, as well as employment-based training and/or jobs placement, and then ultimately to place at least 108 of them. And so we are about at 50% of the placement, with about a year left on the grant. So we're about on track, taking consideration that they spend about 12 months in the program before there's actual placement. Some get placed sooner, but it's more likely that it takes almost that period of time before they actually get placed in the program.
Will your report back reflect where those placements were made?
Yes, we will follow up on where they are minimally by region and to the extent possible by district as well.
Okay. Well, to the extent possible, why would that be a difficulty?
I think it just depends on whether or not we have all the zip code data, and then just some challenges with confidentiality. But yes, we will provide as much information as possible by district.
Okay. Mrs. Rodriguez? Whatever they
With respect to the money that we've received, comparing other distributions of resources, where do we fare in terms of getting money in the state?
Yeah, good question.
I'm going to have Katie respond to that. Katie Camp is our program manager, also in reentry. She was part of the team that put together the original proposal, and I think could provide a little bit more background in terms of comparison, at least with the county as well as the city's funding.
Yeah. Hi. So the BSCC sets requirements for how much different municipalities, whether it's cities or counties, can even apply for. So counties are able, their threshold is at $20 million, so they're able to apply for up to $20 million. LA County's Office of Diversion and Reentry, for both the first round of funding and the second round of funding, received that full dollar amount. Whereas for cities like us, including the city attorney's office, our threshold is $6 million. So I think we're at 5.993 or something. So we tried to get that as close to the 6 as we could.
So are we eligible for any of the monies that are distributed to the county and to supplement whatever we secure on our own?
Yeah, so we sit on a joint local advisory committee with both the city attorney's office and the county of Los Angeles. And so we work collaboratively amongst all of our offices to try to leverage each other's resources, but we're not eligible to tap into their pool of funding. So they've created their own kind of programs that they're implementing throughout the county, and we can also provide more information on their specific programs because they're different from ours.
Right.
But our effort is mostly within trying to make sure that we're not doubling up and double serving kind of
Right.
the same reentry population.
Okay. So then, then to be clear then, so they have their own programs, so we're not able to really leverage whatever they have in securing additional resources to support our programming.
We're able to leverage in certain respects the county, because the county has more money, they're able to operate more housing programs, which is one of the biggest spaces within Project Impact, that $6 million. We can do therapy, we can do legal resources and jobs, but housing is just more expensive. So we're able to leverage the county's resources to help our clients access housing resources. But that's really the greatest extent to which we've really explored that opportunity.
I would just say when we see this on the street every day, our ability to help meet the needs of this population that is seeking to transition lifestyles and given the circumstances that they had experienced, the state has a choice. They could either give us the resources to help support these individuals from either finding themselves back incarcerated, or helping to facilitate them, getting them on their feet, and getting housing and helping to build a new life for themselves. I know where the state is now sending us money. They're sending us money in homeless housing relief, which again, it's kind of like everything else. You could pay it up front, or you're going to pay one way or the other. You're going to pay it up front, or you're going to pay it in the back end. And so they're now they're helping us try to figure out ways of supporting these individuals, keeping them housed, putting shelter over their head, but not providing the support that they actually needed. That was the failed promise that the state legislature, they like to kick down some money every now and again, but they're not being thoughtful about advancing the resources that we need so that we can actually support the folks that need it. Colleagues, I would like to respond in requesting that we collaborate with the county on a legislative agenda for the state to procure more resources to help us have greater efficacy in our work to help this population. Because again, I think we're seeing the outcomes of this on the streets every day.
Yep.
And it's part of the population that's not being tended to for all the reasons that you identified. And I think we need the weight of LA City and LA County behind it to help advocate for a much stronger, all the resources that they promised that we would, the reason why they have all the savings and the surplus is because it was born on the backs of this effort, and they're not giving us the resources necessary to help support these individuals.
And who's suffering the most? It's our city. The people who are living in these encampments, who are addicted to drugs, who, once they do get arrested for a low-level drug offense, they're right back out doing the same damn thing. And here we are with
This is
millions
correct.
of dollars. And it's not you guys at the table. I mean, I love to hear folks on the ground who are dealing with this, the project impact folks who are on the ground dealing with this. And I know they share the same frustrations as well. And we're doing a disservice. And this is why, quite frankly, colleagues, that you're going to see a ballot measure later on this year to help to reverse this, because people are seeing it's not working. So, more venting, more frustration.
Okay, well, I think we all share the frustration, and the comments made, I think, were very timely by you and Mrs. Rodriguez. But let me, I understand this item is going to be continued so that we can receive the additional information, I think, that the committee would like to see. And we want to, listen, we want to work with you. You know, we want to help you promote this program. We want it to be successful. You know, I want as many eligible residents in my district to take advantage of this program. And, you know, but if they don't know, they aren't going to do it. And if we don't know, we can't really push it. So we just need your help to make sure that we can do all we can do to make sure individuals are aware of it. And that the resources are getting down, as you said, getting down to the grassroots. And maybe we should even think about bringing some of the providers in
Yeah, we should hear from
to
them.
get their input
Yep.
on what's happening.
Yep.
To supplement, you know, the overview and the oversight that you're providing. Pardon?
Right.
They have a lot to say.
I know they do, and we should hear it probably.
Yeah.
And so that we can move forward on it. So, without any objection, then we will continue this item. No? So we need to accept the grant money? Is that, is that the first act? Did you want to,
Yes, I'd
why don't you give us the language on that?
Okay. We'd like to authorize the mayor or his designate to, A, retroactively accept on behalf of the City of Los Angeles the 2019 Proposition 47 grant from the California Board of State and Community Corrections in the amount of $5,999,304 for the period of August 15th, 2019 to May 15, 2023. 1B, negotiate and execute the grant award agreement and submit any other necessary agreements and documents relative to the grant award, subject to the review and approval of the city attorney as to form. 2, adopt the attached governing board resolution which endorses the grant agreements and agrees to comply with the program and funding requirements of the grant. And 3, request that the CAO report back on the remaining recommendations to implement the 2019 Proposition 47 grant from the California BSCC.
Okay, thank you. Members, without any objection, that will be the order. Thank you much.
Thank
One quick question, though. So this is accepting the mayor's portion. When do we accept the city attorney's portion, or do we?
I believe that was
I think
Or
the city-
or have we?
I think the city attorney's already been.
They
I want
were
to say
pretty
just
quick.
before the holidays. Yeah.
Oh, all right.
So, yeah.
All right, just checking.
We're behind them.
All right, great. Okay, well, any other comments on this, members? Okay, well, thank you thanks for the presentation. Look forward to working with you, and let us help you. We want you to be successful, but we got to, make sure that our folks are getting it. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Clerk, what else before us at this time?
That was the last item, Mr. Chair.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.